Hey everybody, it's Milax. And before we get started with today's episode, I wanted to talk for just a minute about how you can support this podcast. I hear from folks all the time in-game or elsewhere about how much they love the show, and that love and support genuinely means a lot to me. It's why I keep doing this. I also get asked fairly frequently about how people can support the show directly, and the simplest answer is to become a patron on Patreon. I don't run ads or require a subscription to listen because I just don't want to, and I don't think that that's fair to everybody. I want anybody to be able to listen to the show whether they are paying for it or not. But it does mean a lot when you directly support my efforts by becoming a patron. It does take a lot of time, to produce every one of these episodes, and it does cost me some money. So, yeah, if you're into it and you really like it, take a few minutes, consider becoming a patron at whatever level you feel comfortable with. There are benefits and rewards that can be unlocked, and you can find all that info by clicking the Patreon link in the episode notes. And, of course, if you don't want to become a patron, or you can't, or whatever, that's obviously fine. I'm just excited that you want to listen. In today's episode, we're going to be talking again with GM Quilic about the upcoming Premium Fest, and we're also going to get an update on the QST that's been happening over the last few months. Welcome to the 7th episode of Town Square Central. Well, Quilic, thanks so much for joining us again on Town Square Central. It is really awesome to have you back, and I'm really excited to get into some exciting Premium Fest talk with you today.
Excellent. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, so let's start with just the basics. What is Premium Fest?
So Premium Fest is, as the name would imply, it's a festival that is put on by the premium team usually, and that's the case this year as well. And every year the premium team puts together it's like you'll see free festivals around Elanthea, and they're kind of all the same. You go and there's some raffles, a little bit of storyline. It's like a weekend long thing. There's the Festival of the Fallen, and we just had Fair of the North up in Ice Mule, and every town's kind of got their own little version of that. Well, Premium Fest is the premium team's version of that. It's normally held on. But not normally. It is held on Four Winds Isle, and it's quite a bit bigger. It's sort of that little free festival, just about 10 times that. So you're going to see raffles, a unique grounds. This year we're actually going to have a storyline woven through it, but it's a festival. It's a merchanting festival, service heavy. Live merchants, things for sale. New things introduced, that sort of thing.
And how would you say this compares to the other big events in the game in terms of like the excitement level and hype surrounding services and stuff that's going on? Because some of those like free events are like fun and neat, but there's nothing really like terribly exciting going on. And then you have like the big premiere events like Duskruin and Ebon Gate. Like, where does this sort of rank there in your opinion?
Well, it's a different flavor from like Duskruin or Delirium Manor or things like that. It's a different type of festival. I think Ebon Gate is a decent comparison to that. It's not nearly the size or scope of Ebon Gate, but it's respectable in and of its own right. I would say it's probably about 60% of Ebon Gate, and that's sort of in every way. So like Ebon Gate has its storyline every year. Well, Premium Fest has a storyline, but it's not quite as big or as long as Ebon Gate's storyline is, and in every other way it's comparable. Pretty much, if you see it at Ebon's Gate, as far as what type of things are offered, you're going to see the same sort of thing at Premium Fest, just on a slightly smaller scale.
Okay, and now I I feel like I reveal my ignorance a lot on this podcast, which is, I guess, a great part of doing it. You don't have to laugh
Sure.
that hard at that, but I learn a lot.
No, I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, yeah.
That was I was laughing
It
in
was a
solidarity.
sympathetic laugh. It was a
There we go.
sympathetic laugh.
Right.
So I had actually, before you and I talked, I'd never gone to Premium Fest before, and I never really heard a lot about it. So talk a bit about the history of Premium Fest.
The first Premium Festival was actually in 2002. It was called the Ilian Cloud. It was not an annual festival at that point. That ran in 2002. And then there was one in 2007, 2009. And then every year since 2009, there's been something that has filled that slot of Premium Festival. Now, it didn't get really big. Big is, obviously subjective. It didn't get to be sort of what it is today, I would say probably until about 2014, which is when the previously themed grounds were introduced. So in 2014 is when the Premium team, I obviously wasn't on staff at the time, came out and said, we're going to make a wholly unique grounds to hold Premium Festival on. And they came up with it. They called it the Midsummer Nights Festival. And what it was like wood sprites. And wood sprites were the merchants. And it was a very arboreal setting and things like that. There were NPCs that were all built upon that theme, and that was the theme of Premium Fest. And that grounds actually lasted for 5 years. And for the more mathematically inclined, that will lead you to realize that ran until last year. Last year was the last year of that theme, and this year we have come up with a brand new theme, brand new grounds, new NPCs, new merchants, and things of that nature. But it's the idea of a Premium Fest has been around for quite a while. But I would say probably about 5 years ago is when it kind of got big, as big as it is.
Yeah, and it looks like I'm looking over the service teasers from previous events, and there's some pretty big things that happen at this, right? Like there's permablessing and fusion removal and enchanting and all kinds of exciting things that probably get people pretty excited.
We do our best to make it a memorable experience. In previous years, it has been pretty impressive, from my viewpoint at least, with what is offered. Historically, there have been new things that are offered for the first time at premium festivals. There's a healthy amount of merchanting that goes on, like live merchanting for people who are after alterations and things like that, and some pretty decent services historically.
I like how carefully you are speaking historically about what has happened without directly revealing anything about what's going to happen. It's very, very well done.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So what then? You mentioned the 5-year history of this event and where it's been and all, the location that it's been right now or previously. What's changing this time around?
This time around, we, as I said, we have a completely new venue. This time for instance, I can only speak personally for when I came on staff. So I was on staff, but not technically on the premium team last year when Premium Fest ran. I was able to participate as a GM, which was my first experience at an event of any kind. So it was very cool for me. But I can tell you that there was a storyline that ran sort of adjacent to last year's Premium Fest. It was sort of kind of a small little offshoot. It was something that I threw together and ran. It was actually technically my first storyline in Gemstone. Very, very small. I would rather not go into details because it was by comparison to the kind of stuff I'm doing now, it's just embarrassing. But this year we have what I like to call an integrated storyline. So I know last time you and I spoke, we talked a little bit about Carnival of Freaks and sort of the reception that people have had to that and how it still comes up from time to time. I think the thing that sort of resonated with people the most about that, or at least with a certain subsection of the population, was that the storyline was sort of wound through the entire experience. I mean, yes, you were going to see merchants, but the storyline was happening through all those merchants, and there were lots of little things happening that were all related to the story. So you kind of felt immersed in it. Well, we're going for that feel with this. Now,
I was going to say that sounds like a very Quilic approach to a merchanting event, but go ahead.
Guilty as charged. We're going for the same feel, but obviously in a completely different manner. We're not redoing Carnival Free. In a completely different way, we're hoping to get the same kind of feel for everybody. That would be what I would say is sort of the biggest difference from last year to this year. So last year's grounds were amazing. The Midsummer Nights Festival with the sprites and everything was always a ton of fun. This is hopefully going to be just as enjoyable, but it is certainly completely new.
And so this year it's called Windfellow's Retreat. Is that right?
It is indeed. Windfellow's Retreat is the name, and that name will come to make sense tomorrow night.
And so I'll say that when I heard that was the name of the event, the first thing that I immediately thought of was you telling me how much you loved
The Name of the Wind.
Yes. Was that an influence? Was it an influence?
It wasn't. It won't. It won't give anything away to reveal. So when some of the other members of the premium team and myself were brainstorming what to call this event, we were just sort of throwing out names. And I think we talked last time. For all that, I enjoy storytelling. I'm fairly good at it. Improvisation, all those kinds of things. I am terrible at naming things.
Really?
That is my absolute weakness. I'm horrible at naming things.
Hence Quilic Storytime.
Yeah. And well, you can look through my NPCs that are in QST that are just ludicrous if you take a half step back and look at them. But so we were tossing names around, and I actually threw out a name that was much closer to sort of Name of the Wind, and that got the word wind into it. And then one of the other members who was in on this brainstorming session sort of morphed that into Windfellow. So in a roundabout sort of way, yes, that was somewhat of an influence to what I was trying to come up with when I was trying to come up with a reasonable name for this.
I always like answers that make me sound correct, even if they really, really have to work hard to get there. So I appreciate that.
Well, I do my best.
Yeah. So tell us then, what should we expect from this year's Premium Fest?
One of the biggest things that we've already sort of mentioned in a variety of places is the scheduling. So this thing starts Friday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and runs through the following Friday at midnight. So it runs for 7 days. We have made a concerted effort to have all of our services, or as many of them as we can manage, available during the opening weekend. So that means when the grounds open at 9 p.m., that's sort of when opening weekend, quotes around that, begins. And so from that moment until the end of the day Sunday is when the majority of the services are going to be offered. That's something people should expect. So anybody who's like, oh yeah, it kind of opens, I'll check it out, Monday or Tuesday, I would recommend not doing that because you're going to miss out on most of the services that are going to be offered. Which is not to say there won't be merchanting being done during the week, because there absolutely will be. But most of the big stuff from a services standpoint, and when I say services, I mean things like raffles and things like that, are going to happen over the weekend. So,
and is the goal of that? The goal of that, I assume, is just to make it as widely available to folks as possible.
Absolutely, that's the idea. When we talked about it, we were like, "Well, should we spread them out?" And you know what? For the most part, people have more availability on the weekend. They can move their schedules around a little bit better. Kids aren't in school, things like that. So over the weekend is when it's not going to be 100%, but that's when the majority of the services are going to be offered.
Yeah, that seems like a safe bet.
Yeah. And then now I mentioned the integrated storyline. The storyline will be in effect from minute one, from the time the grounds open up at 9 p.m. The storyline will be active. I'm being deliberately vague, obviously, but from that point until Monday, the story won't really progress forward a whole lot. It'll be more exposition and backstory and letting people understand exactly what's going on through a bunch of little things being done over the weekend in and amongst the services and merchanting and things like that. Then Monday, is when at least my focus will be on the storyline itself and actually moving the storyline forward.
It's also just kind of an interesting way to structure it, because if you're a person really drawn in by the services part of things, like you've got a lot to do in the weekend, and if you're more into the storyline work, it sounds like you've got a lot to occupy you during the week too.
That's we're trying to have it be immersive. Our hope is, or my hope, I should say, I'm being wholly selfish here, is that people will come for the services because we do have some pretty good stuff that's being offered the opening weekend, and they will see, and by virtue of being there for the services, they will get to witness and participate in at least a little bit the storyline as far as like conversation and interactions with the NPCs and things like that, which then hopefully will get some of those people to be like, hey, this is kind of cool, and I'm already kind of involved because I was there hanging out all weekend for the services, so I'll show up for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to see where this goes. So that's sort of our hope.
Yeah, that sounds like, I think that sounds like a pretty solid bet.
Hopefully. I mean, we'll see. It could completely blow up in my face, but, it wouldn't be the first time.
And how many folks are working with you on this project?
This is, I don't know if I can give you an exact number, but a healthy number. 20-ish. There's 20-ish people involved on my side of things. Actually, more than that, honestly. So around there, a good amount. Let's just leave it at a good amount.
Okay, all right. What else can you tell us about what to expect, or is there anything else you want to tell us about what to expect about this year's Premium Fest?
For those who are familiar with sort of the way I approach things, you'll probably see some familiarity in the way some of these things go down. Again, it's a little bit vague, but people understand where I'm coming from with that. The people who have been involved with the Nazor Chronicles, or QST, however you want to call it, are going to see some familiar faces. I would say that anybody who is interested in, so I do monthly on Four Winds, I do tattoos with Hepet, my tattoo artist, and Hepet will be about. So anybody who's been thinking about doing tattoos should have a rough idea in mind, just on the off chance that they get chosen for that. It's honestly, I'm expecting to be a little crazy over the weekend. It's going to be a little nuts, but in a good way. I think there's going to be, I would fully expect there to be several times where people will have to make a choice as to which merchant they will attend.
Oh man, we're going to have a Sophie's Choice merchanting situation.
Yes. Hopefully, with any luck, that's how that's going to go.
That's the goal.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I mean, really, the harder I can make it on you guys, the happier I get. So.
No, I actually think that's fair. I think you should have to choose between different things that you want to do.
That's, yeah. You need, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
And now, what tips or suggestions would you give to folks who may be new to Premium Fest or who just want to know what to do to have a good time this coming week?
Well, I would say plan to be around for Friday, Saturday, Sunday after the grounds open. This is a silvers only event, so there are no alternate currencies. There's no blood script. There's no seashells. There's no nothing. This is silvers and only silvers. So, bring silvers. And a lot of people advocate for Premium Fest and also for Evan's Gate coming forward. Alteration lists are really, really helpful. Have an idea of what you want to get altered, because you never know when you're going to get spun. And while I personally enjoy it when somebody hands me something and says, help, I'm happy to help them. But for the most part, it works out a lot better usually if you've already got an idea of what you want.
Right. It's also not fun for the 19 people waiting behind that person, right? Yeah, and I have been that person before. So I'm not casting aspersions upon anyone that I wouldn't cast also upon myself here. But yeah, I think that's a good suggestion.
Every GM is different because I enjoy that. I honestly do. It's when somebody hands me something, their hand, figuratively shaking, it's like, I'm really not sure. I wasn't expecting to get picked. I would like to get this altered. Look at what I'm wearing and try and find something that's going to match with that. I enjoy that. That's enjoyable for me because right or wrong, I feel like that person is going to get more out of that alteration than maybe somebody else might get out of their 700th alteration that they already had planned out for 6 months.
Well,
You know what I mean?
the other thing about that is in my experience, the times that I've tried to write something out that's exactly what I wanted, it didn't feel very satisfying to get it versus when I came in maybe less prepared or less certain about what I wanted and said, "Hey, help me out here." And there was someone willing to play along with that. It's kind of fun and surprising to see what you get, and I don't know, there's fun in that, you know? It
I
feels
agree
more
with that.
special, I think.
I certainly I've seen both sides of that. Some people really get a lot of satisfaction out of getting exactly what they wanted, exactly what they asked for. Other people, it's exciting to see what the merchant can come up with on their own.
Yeah, I also really like it when GMs punish players who give them, who take the like monkey's paw approach. I think that Wyram really likes to do this because I've seen him a
Yes.
couple times when someone's like, make this, colorful or pretty, and then he just makes it look like shockingly gaudy and awful.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I don't know, I like that. I get a little joy out of that.
I get that.
But don't do it to me. Only do it to other
No,
people. That's what I'm saying.
duly noted.
Yeah. All right. My care doesn't want that. Yeah.
Well played.
Yeah. All right. Well, Premium Fest sounds exciting. I will be there tomorrow, and
Excellent.
I'm just curious to find out how the sort of storyline stuff is going to be woven in. But it sounds like a really awesome event. I'm excited. I'm sure that other folks are going to be really excited too. And then
Okay.
you also have said that the last time we talked was right before the Nazareth Chronicles Part 2 was going to start, right?
Yeah.
And it at this point has been going for a while. So give us a quick update before we go about what has been happening with QST and where we are.
Okay. So at the moment we're on hiatus with Dusk Ruin and then Premium Fest. The storyline is officially on hiatus. The players, bless their hearts, have completely ignored that and are charging ahead in all variety of manners. The flock, which is the bad guys, have been working on a super secret project, which is so secret that they threw it up on the official boards and invited anybody who wanted to play along to come and join in with them. They have been working on a surprise that they are going to spring on the town and on the good guys
And
sometime
and are
next month.
you are you privy to this surprise?
I am indeed. I'm
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
I am intimately involved.
Okay.
But
I thought so, but I just wanted to
yeah,
make sure. I
yeah.
didn't know how surprising we were talking here.
Oh no, which I would not put it past them. But no, in this case, this was an idea that we came up with together, and it should be interesting. So the story right now we're doing the Nazareth Chronicles Chapter 2. The Nazareth Chronicles is actually it's been going for 7 months, something like that. And next month is the finale. So that storyline is coming to an end just before Ebongate. So the month of September is the finale of the current QST storyline. And so we're sort of revving up for that. Where we're at right now, for those who had been following along, so Nihor is the leader of the flock. He is the flock master, if you will, and his character is exquisitely played. His player does a fantastic job with him, um, and he actually managed to get his arm cut off by Socius, and then Socius beat him to death with his own arm,
Oh
which
my
was
god.
enjoyable for all involved.
Yeah, I'm really sad that I missed that actually.
I actually had a lot of fun writing that messaging. And yeah, so Socius basically killed Nihor. He disarmed him, if you will.
Come on.
And and then Socius turned over running of the town on the spot. He sort of abdicated his control of the town over to a new character who has been introduced, Mistress Selby, Selbi. Mistress Selby is a tutor, a former tutor of Socius's, and has been around a little bit. And she has a very sharp tongue, and the players have been getting a lot of fun out of her unfiltered thoughts. So she is now sort of in charge of things, and Socius has gone into hiding. unbeknownst to some of the players in sort of an in-character way, but freely known out of character, is that Socius has been writing letters back and forth with sort of the defenders of the town, and this is all part of some kind of larger plot that nobody quite understands yet, but Socius is certainly not gone. So, and that's kind of where we're at. The flock are not happy. Nihor's arm, obviously, in Elanthea, people can get insta-healed and insta-raised and all that kind of thing, but poor Nihor's arm that got restored has gone necrotic on him, and he's not sure why, so anybody who sees Nihor wander around the Premium Fest, I'm sure he'd be happy to talk with you about it. He's not real pleased with the state of his arm at this point, and they are plotting, well, what they're plotting.
Yeah. No, I'm going to track him down because I want to see how gross this little arm looks.
It's pretty, and make sure and ask him how it got that way. I'm sure he'd love to tell you the story.
Yeah, a full recounting.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that sounds. And so when does the action resume?
The action resumes. Let me get a date. So Premium Fest ends on the 30th. If I were a masochist, I would be starting things back up on the 1st of September. I'm not. So we're starting on the 5th of September, which is a Thursday.
Okay.
Actually, 2 weeks from the day that we're recording this.
Okay.
So on the 5th is when we start back up, and then we're running for roughly a month. It sort of depends on how things go, but roughly the 26th of September. Again, it's all kind of... I know where we have to get to. I know where the story has to be for us to end up, and there's a few things to wrap up between now and then. It depends on how quickly we do that, so I don't want to set an exact date for the finale of the whole story, but around the end of September.
And this is the conclusion of the Nazareth Chronicles, right? So it ends with this arc.
The Nazareth Chronicles story ends with this arc. Okay. So the Nazareth Chronicles story actually started with Those Aren't Tears, which was my first Four Winds story. That's where Nazareth got introduced. That's where Elspeth got introduced. Those events sort of flowed into the Nazareth Chronicles. This arc brings that to a close, and never fear, though, the immediately following Ebon Gate, there's a whole new story coming down the pike. So that's already, I would say, 60% formed. The idea is already completely formed. We're just sort of filling in details and things like that at this point. But there's a whole new story starting up in early November.
I would just like to reiterate for the record that I do not understand how you have a job, you're in school, family, you're doing Premium Fest, you're doing the Nazareth Chronicles, and you're already almost done planning the next thing. I don't know where you find the time to do all that, but color me impressed and also excited for what's coming.
Well, thank you. I wish I could tell you my secret, but I don't know.
Just a lot of caffeine.
Sure. Yeah. At the very least. A lot of caffeine and a very understanding spouse at the very least.
Oh, that's got to actually be the most important factor.
Absolutely, it is.
Well, Quilic, thanks as always for the conversation today. It was awesome, and there's a lot of really exciting stuff. And I will see you at Premium Fest this weekend.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Thanks to Quilic for being flexible with his schedule and coming back on. I'd also like to thank Efirup. I know I got that wrong, but thank you. Lucktar and Lysel for their support on Patreon. If you like the show, please consider checking out the Patreon page and consider becoming a patron yourself. Thanks for listening. As always, you can reach me via email at gsivpodcast@gmail.com. I'm Milax. Catch you next time on Town Square Central. I have a 55-pound golden doodle named Bowser.
Nice.
She got a really bad haircut today.